السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Welcome to another episode of our Ramadan series, Living with Prophet Yusuf. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to pick up where we left off. I just want to apologize to everybody for what happened yesterday. Totally out of our control. But inshallah ta'ala, we'll try to make up for it today. So yesterday we left off with Yusuf alayhi salam finally having some reprieve, in the fact that he was able to embrace his brother Binyamin, and he was able to, bring him into his intimacy and to hold him and to hug him, a brother that he had not seen for a period of 40 years, man. 40 years he had not seen his brother. And his brother probably didn't even know what Yusuf looked like, because he was an infant when the brothers threw Yusuf in the well. So it was a very emotional moment. And I'm sorry that, the internet was breaking up and we couldn't, just kind of live in that moment with Yusuf. But, if anybody has ever, missed a family member and not seen a family member for a substantial amount of time and then had the opportunity to embrace them, it's just, it's just really emotional. So you can only imagine what Yusuf was experiencing in that moment. To be able to embrace his brother and to hold him and to, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, awa ilayhi akha. Awa yani dhammahu ilayhi. Yani he hugged him and he squeezed him and he brought him close. And Yusuf explained to Binyamin what he had to do in order to keep him there. Binyamin said to Yusuf, La ufarikuka abadan, I will never separate myself from you. After all of these years of being separated from you, I will never leave your side again. I will never leave from beside you ever again. But Yusuf had to explain to him what his plan was. And his plan was to find a way to keep Binyamin with him while sending the brothers back to Palestine to retrieve their father and bring the entire family to Egypt. That was the overall goal. So Yusuf alayhi salam put the king's mug, the king's cup that was gold and it was encrusted with rubies and pearls and things like that. And he put this cup, the siqaya, he put it in the bag of Binyamin. And then as the brothers packed their things and they were on their way out, right? On their way out. Ayat number 70, surah number 12, ayat 70, turn to 70. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَمَّا جَهَّزَهُمْ بِجَهَازِهِمْ جَعَلَ السِّقَايَ فِي رَحْلِ أَخِيهِ ثُمَّ أَذَّنَ مُؤَذِّنٌ أَيَّتُهَا الْعِيرُ إِنَّكُمْ لَسَارِقُونَ. That when they begin to pack all of their things and they're getting ready to leave with all of the supplies that Yusuf gave them, right? He said, جَعَلَ السِّقَايَ فِي رَحْلِ أَخِيهِ. He placed the king's cup in the bag of Binyamin. ثُمَّ أَذَّنَ مُؤَذِّنٌ. Then a caller called out, أَيَّتُهَا الْعِيرُ إِنَّكُمْ لَسَارِقُونَ. Oh, you visitors, you guys are thieves. So he went through with his plan. So when they stopped the brothers as they were leaving out of the king's court, they're on their way out with the bags, the camels loaded up, everything. A caller calls out, you guys are thieves, stop. So they stopped them at the door before they're able to leave. When the brothers turned around, وَأَقْبَلُوا عَلَيْهِمْ مَاذَا تَفْقِدُونَ. The brothers turned around and said, what are you missing? Like, what is missing? And قَالُوا نَفْقِدُ سُوَاعَ الْمَلِكِ وَلِمَنْ جَاءَ بِهِ حِمْلُ بَعِيرٍ وَأَنَا بِهِ زَعِيمٌ. They said that we are missing the king's cup. Very expensive. All right, we're missing the king's mug, missing the king's cup. وَلِمَنْ جَاءَ بِهِ, and whoever produces it, then for him is himlu ba'ir. They will have a whole camel filled with supplies. وَأَنَا بِهِ زَعِيمٌ, and I will be the one to shoulder that. This is the caller from the king's court that is making this claim. He's saying that I will shoulder that responsibility. Whoever produces the cup, then I will reward them with a camel loaded, filled with supplies. Some of the scholars use this hadith or use this ayat as proof, as dalil for giving or offering a reward for something that is lost. So as a Muslim, if something is missing, like a car or a cat or, a human being, the permissibility of making a reward, an offer for something that is missing based upon what was said here. He said that whoever produces the king's cup, then I will give them a whole camel filled with supplies. All right. They said that we are missing the king's cup. And for he who produces it, they will have the reward of a camel's load, and I will be responsible for it. So the scholars use this as dalil, as proof for offering a reward for something that is lost. So the brothers, what do? They swear by Allah. Qalu tallahi, we swear to God. Tallahi laqad alimtum ma jitna linufsida fil ard wa ma kunna sariqin. They said, wallahi, we swear to God, you all know that we did not come here, to create mischief. We did not come here to create mischief in your town, in your country, in your city, nor are we thieves. We're not known to be thieves. And as I said yesterday, the irony here is that they would recuse themselves, or they would, acquit themselves of being guilty of stealing, when in fact they were guilty of something far worse than stealing, and that was trying to kill their own brother. And as I said before, this is how sometimes we'll condemn somebody for a particular sin that we see as being heinous, but we might be guilty of something far more, atrocious. We might be guilty of sins that are far more atrocious. Here they are, acquitting themselves. God forbid, we're not thieves. We don't steal. No, you don't steal, but you definitely tried to kill your brother. You beat your brother up. You sold your brother into slavery. You threw your brother into a well. So no, you don't steal. That's not your crime. That's not your crime of choice, right? As they say with, people who suffer from drug addiction, that's not my drug of choice. That's not your crime of choice. That's not your sin of choice. So, as I said before, a woman might see, a woman not wearing hijab, and a'udhu billah, astaghfirullah, she come outside without her hijab, and these sisters, they not covered properly, blah, blah, blah. But yet, you do a bunch of backbiting yourself. You do a lot of talking about people behind their back. So while you do cover, you wear full hijab, you wear full hijab, but you also engage in other sins that are far more heinous. Please tell me, which one is worse? Not wearing hijab or backbiting? You tell me which one. According to Islam, I'm not talking about how you feel personally. According to Islam, which one is far worse? A woman coming outside without hijab on, and just because she doesn't have on hijab doesn't mean that she's not, dressed in a, modest fashion. But backbiting is far worse. Trust me. Backbiting causes more damage to a society than a woman coming outside without hijab. A woman coming outside without hijab on, that sin only affects her. That sin doesn't affect anybody. That affects her. That's between her and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, you could backbite somebody and you could send a whole entire community into turmoil because of you talking about somebody behind their back. You can commit murder. People can resort to murder because you mentioned something about somebody behind their back. People can get divorced because you mentioned something behind somebody's back. We're talking about some of the greatest crimes that can be committed in a society due to backbiting. So I mean, don't get in the habit of condemning people for sins that, you yourself are guilty of worse than that. All right. So, it's like they're trying to prove that they are innocent while they have a horrible track record. They're trying to prove that they're innocent. Like, God forbid, we're not thieves. We don't steal. But yet you tried to kill your brother. You threw your brother into a well and then sold him into slavery. It's like the audacity to exonerate yourself while you carry a huge burden of other, atrocious acts that you are guilty of. قَالُوا فَمَا جَزَاؤُهُ إِن كُنتُمْ كَاذِبِينَ. So the caller from the king's court said, well, then if you're not thieves, you didn't steal, then what is the consequence if we find the cup in one of your bags? What is the consequence if we find the cup in one of your bags? قالوا جزاؤه من وجد من رحله فهو جزاؤه كذلك نجزي الظالمين. They said that if you find, whoever you find the cup in their bag, then the reward is that you keep them. And as I said before, there were two rulings as it relates to thievery and stealing. There was the ruling of Egypt, and the scholars mentioned that the ruling of Egypt was that the person is to be killed. You steal in Egypt during that time, your consequence was to be killed. And then there was the ruling of Yaqub in Palestine in the area of Shem, and the punishment for stealing was that you were to be held as a captive for the person that you stole from for a year. And I mean, like, subhanAllah, how beautiful would that be today, that if you stole from me, then you are my servant, you are my captive for the next year. I guarantee you there will be a lot less stealing in this society. Meanwhile, today you can steal someone's brand new car, get caught. If it's a first offense, you get the first offender's, ticket, meal ticket, exit ticket. You get a slap on the wrist and off you go. Meanwhile, you just, something somebody worked so hard for, something somebody put their hard-earned sweat and tears into buying or purchasing a vehicle for their family, the huge inconvenience that was caused to them. And the only thing that happens to you is that you get out on a ROR, released on your own recognizance, because this is your first offense and you get a first offender's, pass. You understand? Just imagine if we ruled by that today, and that is that if you stole, then you are to be the servant of somebody that you stole from for a year. And that was the ruling in Palestine, the ruling of Shem. So Yusuf alayhi salam, knowing that they would opt for the ruling of Yaqub, he asked them. He said, so what would you guys prefer? Would you prefer that the person that we find the king's cup in their bag, that we apply to them the ruling of Egypt, or we apply to them the ruling of Shem, of Palestine? Your choice. They're not going to gamble with that, because they're starting to think like, well, maybe somebody did take it. Maybe somebody did take it. Let's err on the side of caution. Let's err on the side of caution. All right, so they opted for the ruling of Yaqub. And that was that if you find the cup in someone's bag, then that person is your servant for a year. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, we continue on, Surah number 12, ayah 76. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَبَدَأَ بِأَوْئِيَتِهِمْ قَبْلَ وِعَاءِ أَخِيهِ ثُمَّ اسْتَخْرَجَهَا مِنْ وِعَاءِ أَخِيهِ. So Yusuf ordered his men to begin searching the bags of the brothers. He left Binyamin last. And that's where we left off yesterday. Why did he start with the brothers first? He started searching their bags first. He started to search their bags first, and before he went to Binyamin's bag. He started searching their bags first, right? He started searching their bags first, right? So that he could free them of blame. He could free them of blame. We know that you guys are not guilty. All right? Because it just makes the story look more authentic. All right? And Qatada, one of the scholars of tafsir, Qatada, he said, أنه يوسف لما كان يفتح متاع لا ينظر في وعاء إلا استغفر الله سبحانه وتعالى تأثما مما قذفهم به حتى إذا لم يبقى إلا رحل بنيامين قال ما أظن أن هذا أخذه قالوا والله لا نترك حتى ننظر في رحله. That, right, to throw them off. Qatada said that when Yusuf began going through each of their bags, or when the men began going through each of their bags, every time they would open a bag, Yusuf would mumble under his breath, Astaghfirullah. Why? Right, so it wasn't obvious. Very good. Qatada said every time they opened a bag to look inside of it, Yusuf would mumble under his breath, Astaghfirullah. I seek Allah's forgiveness. Why is Yusuf saying Astaghfirullah? Why is Yusuf saying astaghfirullah? Every time they opened the bag and looked inside, Yusuf alayhi salam would say astaghfirullah. Why? Not that he lied, but he's kind of tricking them into a situation. Because he knew he was setting them up. I wouldn't say that a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lied. Right? I wouldn't use that language. Right? He was setting the whole thing up. And he kind of felt bad that he had to resort to this. Right? He had to resort to this. You know, sometimes, you know, a little bit of bad to prevent a lot of bad is not, it's not so bad. Right? I hate to even throw it out there like that because I don't want Shaitan to play with anybody's head and make anybody accept that as a philosophy, that sometimes a little bit of bad in order to prevent a lot of bad, you know, is not so bad. And that's actually that's actually to some degree that is a principle. You know, sometimes you have to take the lesser of two evils, right? He has to take the lesser of two evils. This was the only way that, you know, he could get, you know, to go through with his plan. And as we're going to see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the one who inspired him with this plan. So we wouldn't totally say that it was a bad thing because it came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's another thing. I'm glad you said that. She said that if she has another child, she's going to name her child Binyamin. Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said the names that we name our children with are three types. There are the names that are, you know, names that are identified with Islam. There are the names that non-Muslims completely identify with. And then there are names, asma mushtaraka. Then there are names that both Muslims and non-Muslims both name their children with. All right. And is it permissible to name your child Benjamin or Binyamin? Some scholars are of the opinion that it is not permissible because this was not a name that was, you know, that was common. You know, I would probably not. I would probably err on the side of caution not to do that. You know, that's just me. Nonetheless, you know, we live in we weren't raised in an Arab environment so that we have to take on Arab names. All right. When you think about Umar ibn al-Khattab, when you think about Uthman ibn Affan, these were their names before they converted to Islam. So not to say that those are Muslim names. There's no such thing as Muslim names. All right. Binyamin, it means either the son of the right hand. Bin comes from the word ibn. Bin comes from the word ibn. All right. So that means bin, ibn, son of. Yamin. Yamin means the right hand. So some scholars say Binyamin. Some scholars say Binyamin means the son of the right hand, meaning the son that is blessed. Because in Islam, the right is seen as something that is blessed, which is why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as Aisha mentioned, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam kana yuhibbu, that he used to like to do things with the right hand, with the right side, starting with the right first. So when he entered into the masjid, he would enter with his right foot. When he would eat with his right hand. When he would put his clothes on, he would start with the right side. So Binyamin, the son of the right hand, meaning the son that is blessed, the blessed son. All right? Because the right hand is a metaphor for blessed, to be blessed. All right? The right hand is a metaphor for being blessed. So Binyamin means the son, the blessed son. Some scholars say Binyamin means the son of al-Methkal. Al-Methkal comes from the word thaqilat. You know, when the Prophet ﷺ said to Mu'adh, thaqilatka ummuka ya Mu'adh, may your mother be sacrificed for you, O Mu'adh. May your mother be ransomed for you, Mu'adh. Methkal means that a woman who dies while her child is an infant. Right? The woman who dies before the child. So perhaps Rahil named, Rachel named Binyamin because maybe she was having some complications, or maybe she had a dream and she saw that she wasn't going to live too much longer after she gave birth, because she died while she was experiencing postpartum bleeding. So perhaps she named him Binyamin, the son of a woman who was deceased, because she knew that she was not going to live long enough to enjoy her child. All right. So just a little, tidbit. All right. So Yusuf alayhi salam, he, every time he would open their bags, he would say astaghfirullah, because he just felt uncomfortable having to do it this way, right? Having to do it this way. This is the lesser of two evils. The other evil would be to let them take Binyamin with them. Take Binyamin, that is the greater evil. The lesser of the two evils is to create a scenario whereby he could keep Binyamin with him, all right, and possibly bring the father there. So it's the lesser of two evils. It's the lesser of two evils. All right. And so then once he began searching their bags, he got to Binyamin's bag. And he says to the brothers, he said, "Ma adunnu anna hadha akhadhaha." He said, "I don't believe that your younger brother took, the king's mug or the king's, I don't believe that he took it." And so the brothers, said, "No, if you're going to search everybody's bag, then you have to search his bag as well." All right. So you have to search his bag. So it just kind of made the scenario, made the scene seem more authentic. And so lo and behold, he opens their bag. He opens Binyamin's bag. He said, "Thumma istakhrajaha min wi'a'i akhi," and then he took it out of the bag of his brother Binyamin. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pay attention to the ayah. We're on ayat number 76. Follow me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَذَلِكَ كِدْنَا لِيُوسُف. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and he said, and likewise, we planned for Yusuf, meaning we gave Yusuf this plan, meaning this whole setup was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why I said, don't say that he lied, because it came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No, he's saying astaghfirullah because he had to do it that way. Yusuf is an honorable man. We're talking about a man who opted to go to prison rather than sleep with all of these women who wanted to have sex with him. We're talking about a man who, you understand, like, he was an honorable guy. He didn't do stuff like that. So to have to resort to that, it's like astaghfirullah. It's like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam permission to marry Zainab, right? And the Prophet ﷺ was uncomfortable with marrying Zainab because Zainab used to be married to who? Who was Zainab married to before she married the Prophet ﷺ? Who was Zainab married to before she married the Prophet ﷺ? Question. She was married to Zayd, right? Zayd ibn Haritha, who was the servant of the Prophet ﷺ, who before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prevented the Sahaba from calling people their children or calling people their parents that were not their biological parents, they used to refer to Zayd as Ibn Muhammad. Zayd ibn Muhammad, he's Muhammad's son. Even though Zayd was not the Prophet ﷺ's son, he was his servant. But because, everywhere you saw the Prophet ﷺ, you saw Zayd. So they used to call him Zayd ibn Muhammad, Zayd, the son of Muhammad. So when Zayd divorced Zainab, the Prophet ﷺ, Allah told the Prophet ﷺ to marry Zainab. The ayat is in the Quran. You understand? It was uncomfortable. The Prophet ﷺ was uncomfortable with that because it's like, how do I marry, my servants, people who call him my son? How do I marry her? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that it was uncomfortable for the Prophet ﷺ. But the reason why Allah commanded him to do that was because he had to break a social stigma. And that was that, number one, a woman divorced and remarrying, there's nothing wrong with that. Even now to this day in Arab culture, if a woman is divorced, it's aib. It is embarrassing for her to go and remarry somebody else. She's supposed to, what is expected of her is to remain single for the rest of her life. Right. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Allah knew what you hid within yourself. And he feared what the people would say. So sometimes Allah gives us a command to do something, and it's uncomfortable. It's not always easy. You understand? It's not always easy to carry out what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do. So the fact of the matter is that when Yusuf is, putting together this plot, and he's going through their bags, knowing that they're innocent, knowing that they didn't steal, knowing that they didn't do anything wrong in this particular instance, he's like, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Allah commanded me to do this. It's uncomfortable. But it's no different than how the Prophet ﷺ felt when Allah commanded him to marry Zainab. He was uncomfortable. How am I going to take this woman, wife her, go out in front of the community, knowing that she was just married to somebody that everybody in the community calls my son? How would that make me look? How would that make the Prophet ﷺ look, that he's marrying the ex-wife of someone that people in the community called his son? So carrying out the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are not always easy. It's not always an easy task. Standing in front of the public and giving da'wah and being criticized and ridiculed and called names, that's not always easy. It looks fun from the outside because you don't have to deal with everything that goes on the inside. It looks good to be called Sheikh so-and-so and Imam so-and-so. Those titles carry with it a whole line of pain that goes along with that. You understand? To be called a sheikh, to be called an alim, to be called an imam or student of knowledge, those are titles that come with pain. You understand? And yes, Suhaila, thank you. It was also painful because the Prophet ﷺ instructed Zainab to marry Zayd. And she said, are you going to marry me to your servant? Absolutely. So sometimes following the commands is a little uncomfortable. So this is why Yusuf alayhi salam was saying, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, every time he looked in their bags, because he knew that they weren't guilty of anything. He knew that they didn't do anything necessarily wrong, but this was a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says in the very next line of that ayah, وَكَذَلِكَ كِدْنَا لِيُوسُف, and thus we gave Yusuf the plan. Thus did we confer upon Yusuf this whole plot, this whole plan. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala meant by that is that a principle in our religion, kama tudinu tudan, just as you deal with people, so shall you be dealt with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and likewise we gave Yusuf the plot. Likewise we inspired Yusuf with this plot. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired Yusuf to plot against his brothers, just like his brothers plotted against him. Kadalika. Kama tudinu tudan. Just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically saying, quid pro quo, this for that. You understand? They plotted against Yusuf when he was younger, and now Yusuf is returning the favor. You understand? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically justifying Yusuf doing this by saying to Yusuf, because Allah knows that Yusuf is uncomfortable doing this, but Allah wants to make Yusuf see the hikmah in it, that kadhalika kidna li Yusuf, and likewise we gave Yusuf the plot, because just as they plotted against Yusuf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to Yusuf, don't feel bad, you're plotting against them, they plotted against you. It's as if Allah is trying to soothe Yusuf's heart because Yusuf was uncomfortable doing it like this. Kama tudinu tudan. That's an Arab proverb. Memorize it. Understand it. We use karma or whatever the case may be. I don't care what you label it. What you put out in the world, how you deal with people, that's exactly how you're going to be dealt with. Bani Israel, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them to slaughter a cow, right? They killed a man. The man was dead. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed an entire surah, Surah Al-Baqarah. You know why it's called Surah Al-Baqarah? You know why it's called the surah of the cow? Because there was an incident with Bani Israel. A man was killed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed them to slaughter a cow and then take a piece of the cow and strike the body of the dead person. He'll come back to life and he'll expose who killed him. That's the story behind Baqarah. However, Bani Israel was afraid that this would happen. And so they circumventing, they don't want to, they don't want to slaughter the cow. So they say, what color should the cow be? Should the cow be male or female? Should the cow be young or old? Should the cow be, and then Allah says, فَذَبَحُوهَا وَمَا كَادُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. That they finally slaughtered it and they almost didn't want to do it. And how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala end up punishing Bani Israel? Just like they almost didn't obey Allah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewarded them, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them a consequence of turning them into apes. Kiradatan khasirin. He turned them into apes. So just like you wanted to half obey Allah, then we'll make you half a man. Kama tudinu tudan. That's your recompense. That's your consequence. That was their consequence. You half man. You are. He turned them into apes. So they have hands, they have lips, they have eyes, they have all of the faculties that human beings have, but they're animals. You understand? That was their, jaza'an wifaqa. Jaza'an wifaqa, as Allah says in Surah An-Naba. Jaza'an wifaqa. This is an appropriate consequence. You understand? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to soothe the heart of Yusuf, trying to tell him, don't worry about it. They plotted against you, and now you're returning the favor to them. You know what I mean? Subhanallah. So Allah says, كَذَلِكَ كِدْنَا لِيُوسُف. And likewise, we gave Yusuf this plot. مَا كَانَ لِيَأْخُذَ أَخَاهُ فِي دِينِ الْمَلِكِ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he could not have taken his brother within the law of the king, except if Allah willed. Meaning, the fact that Yusuf threw the choice out there, and they chose the law of Yaqub instead of the law of Egypt, that was also the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is also the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says that he would have never been able to take his brother by the law of the king of Egypt, except if Allah had willed. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, نَرَفَعُ دَرَجَاتٍ مَنْ نَشَاءُ. نَرَفَعُ دَرَجَاتٍ مَنْ نَشَاءُ. That we raise in degrees those whom we will. وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. And above everyone that has knowledge is one more knowledgeable. Above everyone. Right? Above everyone that has knowledge is someone more knowledgeable. Brings us to lesson number 59. Lesson 59. Above everyone that has knowledge is someone more knowledgeable. Meaning, no matter how much knowledge you believe that you have, there's always someone that is more knowledgeable than you. No one has absolute knowledge about everything. No one has absolute knowledge, has all the knowledge of anything and everything. Nobody. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٌ. And above everyone that has knowledge is someone that is more knowledgeable. Meaning, as long as there's someone more knowledgeable than the person that is knowledgeable, then that means that all of the knowledge is not contained within one person. You understand? And this is where we go wrong when we begin to elevate scholars and sheikhs, believing that this particular sheikh has all of the knowledge and everybody got to go back to this particular sheikh. You got to be kidding me. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٌ, above everyone that has knowledge is someone that is more knowledgeable. It means that the person that you see, that you think is knowledgeable, there's always somebody out there that is more knowledgeable than he is. Yes, the story of Musa and Khidr, the story of the Hudhuda and Sulaiman. You remember the story of Sulaiman when he sent the bird, the Hudhuda, the hoopie, right? And the hoopie came back and he had knowledge that even Sulaiman didn't have. As the scholars say in an Arab proverb, قَدْ يُوجَدْ فِي النَّهَرِ مَا لَا يُوجَدْ فِي الْبَحْرِ. قَدْ يُوجَدْ فِي النَّهَرِ مَا لَا يُوجَدْ فِي الْبَحْرِ. That you could find in a lake what you can't find in the ocean. You can find in a lake, in a river, what you can't find in the ocean. You understand? وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. And above everyone that has knowledge is someone that is more knowledgeable, meaning the scholar that you hold in this high status. This is the sheikh. You got to go back to the sheikh. You got to go back to this particular scholar. And we extol people and we raised people to almost, divine status, almost divine status, as if all of the knowledge of the religion is contained within this one individual or these, 3 or 4 individuals, so much so that they become these scholars. When you say to someone, the scholars warned against him, you got to think about the language here. Pay attention to the language and how you are being mind freaked. When someone says the scholars warned against him, it's almost as if they're telling you that there has been a consensus amongst all of the scholars of Islam about this particular individual or that particular individual, which is nonsensical. Just complete nonsensical. And for some of us, those are just the catchphrases, words, the catchphrases that get us wrapped up. It's like, oh, the scholars warned against him? Okay. First of all, you never stop to think, what do you mean, the scholars? How many scholars are we talking about? Where are these scholars located at? Name these scholars who warned against him. Please, I need to lay all of these facts down before I base my entire religion on this statement. How many people have been bamboozled with this statement? Oh, the scholars warn against him. What scholars are you talking about? You're talking about 2 scholars from Saudi Arabia, almost as if there's no more scholars on the planet? You gotta be kidding me, man. This has to be a sick joke. And I've been saying this for years, and every time people are also saying, well, the scholars warned against him, year after year after year after year. And it's just like, when do you break out of this spell? Get out. Get out. The scholars warned against him? Oh, you shouldn't listen to the brother. Or I wouldn't take from the brother. Why? Because the scholars warned against him. Okay, stop. You said the scholars. Now, are we talking, when you say scholars, how many scholars are you talking about? Which scholars are you talking about? Because this stuff is hilarious, man. And some of you guys, man, I really feel sorry for you, honestly. You can say all day long, I don't take from the brother, I don't take from him, blah, 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 the scholars warned against him. And I'm sitting here from where I'm sitting at, and I'm just shaking my head like, I really feel sorry for you. Because 10 years from now, you'll be just like the people who was a part of the Nation of Islam, who gave the Nation of Islam 25 years of their lives, only to realize 25 years later that they've been baffled with bullspit. As, Muhammad Ali said, if you can't beat them with facts, baffle them with bullspit. You gotta be kidding me, man. 25 years, wallah al-azim. I remember giving a lecture. The lecture was called The Nation of Islam Are Not Part of Islam. I had a brother come up to me after that lecture was over, crying. The brother said, I was a part of the Nation of Islam for 25 years of my life. I had never heard the Nation of Islam's creed and their philosophies broke down the way you did. I bear witness that there's no deity worthy of worship except Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. He took his shahada right there on the spot. 25 years of his life down the drain because they were following behind something that, they never took time out to put the music on pause and pay attention to the words. Some of y'all still listening to the music. Pay attention to the words. Stop paying attention to the beat. Pay attention to the words. Some of you listen to music and you do the same exact thing. Oh, that's hot. Or you hear that new song or whatever the case may be. And meanwhile, it's rubbish. It's trash. Not talking about nothing. It's trash. It's rubbish. Because you listening to the beat. You're not listening to the words. You're not listening to the words. And I'm just sitting here shaking my head like, because I know where your road is going to end. Your road ends in disappointment 10, 15 years after you were on that stuff. And then 15 years later, you coming back to me talking about, oh, bro, I want to apologize to you, man. I was all wrapped up in this cult stuff. I was a part of the Salafi movement and they had me all wrapped up. And I'm like shaking my head like, yeah, but I was telling you that 15 years ago. And you just wasted 15 years of your life. But it's all good. I don't hold nothing against you. You got to live your life. You got to live your life. I don't hold nothing against you. Trust me. Nobody who has ever spoke about me, who has came to apologize to me or whatever, you don't owe me no apology. You owe yourself an apology for allowing yourself to be bamboozled for so long. You're a grown man. You're a grown woman. You let somebody dictate to you who you can listen to and who you can't listen to. You're a grown man. You're a grown woman. You letting somebody tell you who you can listen to and who you can't listen to? You gotta be kidding me. You don't owe me an apology. You owe your intellect an apology. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you a brain, gave you a mind, gave you the ability to decipher and look through stuff on your own, to use critical thinking. You understand? And so when you hear these phrases, these catchphrases, it says the scholars warned against him. It's like, what scholars are you talking about, dude? Because even if you're referring to one scholar, all of the knowledge of our religion is not contained in one person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. Above everyone that has knowledge is someone that is more knowledgeable. Subhanallah al-Azim, man. I feel sorry for some of our brothers and sisters. I really do. I really do. But there's nothing, you can guide a person to water, you can't make them drink. You can guide a person to a book, you can't make them read. You can guide a person to reading, but you can't make them think. Knowledge is not. All right, so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Al-ilm bida'at al-mu'min, fa'inama wajadaha fahuwa ahaqqu biha. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that knowledge is the lost property of every believer. Wherever you find it, you have more right to it. When you look at the story of Sulaiman, you look at the story of Musa and Khidr, that spells out this whole ayat. This whole ayah, the concept of this ayah, وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٌ, and above everyone that has knowledge is someone that is more knowledgeable. When you look at that ayah, the explanation of that ayah is the whole story of Musa and Khidr. The whole story of Musa and Khidr. Musa was bragging that he was the most knowledgeable person on earth, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Khidr to him, who was not a prophet, to show him that although you're a prophet, although you receive revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, although you're a student of knowledge, although you're an imam, although you're a scholar, although you're an alim, although you're a sheikh, although you're this or that, whatever your title is, there's always somebody who knows a little bit more than you do. Always. Always. There's always somebody who knows something that you don't know. And Khidr's, journey with Musa for that short period of time taught Musa a valuable lesson, and that is humble yourself. And what is Allah subhanahu? Why did Allah bring this ayah? Let me see if you guys can make the connection. We talked about making connections. Why did Allah mention this at the end of the ayah? وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٌ, and above everyone that has knowledge is someone more knowledgeable. Why did Allah bring this particular part of the ayah at the end of that ayah? Let me see who can catch it. Why did Allah bring this at the end of that ayah? Let me see who can catch it. And above everyone that has knowledge is someone more knowledgeable. To humble yourself, who is Allah talking to? Who is Allah referring to? Who is Allah referring to? Wa alaikum salam, Khayzar. Hayakallah. Allah yabarak feek. He wanted Yusuf to know that he was in control? No. Look at the ayat again, and then look at the bottom of the ayat. Allah says, above everyone that has knowledge is someone more knowledgeable. What is Allah alluding to? Nope. Referring to the ones being tested? No, this story is not about Khidr and Musa. I'm just trying to, when I mention Khidr and Musa, I'm trying to give you an explanation of what that concept means. Nah.